Understanding the opposite natures of Aristotle and Plato's rhetorics remains an integral part in dissecting how well they convey their arguments. Plato, who writes in the Socratic method, believes that he can achieve one universal definition of friendship. Contrarily, Aristotle asserts that the definition of friendship must be broken down into the following substantive focuses: friendships of utility, friendships of pleasure, and complete friendship. Aristotle and Plato's rhetorical skills, used to examine friendship and morals, would likely be more successful in union because of their propensity to provide one work with what the other is lacking. Despite their differing views, Aristotle's adoption of Plato's lysis as a foundation of inquiry presents a symmetry of argumentative methodology between the two philosophers. Perhaps the purpose of Aristotle's argument in Nicomachean Ethics is not to disprove or critique Plato, but rather to add to his theories in order to seek a more complete truth. Because, as Aristotle says, we must especially do this as philosophers, lovers of wisdom, for though we love both the truth and our friends, reverence is due to the truth first. Aristotle's rhetorical approach offers a more extensive definition of friendship, while Plato's Socratic language limits his arguments. Although Plato's Socratic method and lysis disables him from coming to a definite conclusion, his use of the Socratic method has the benefit of showing the audience what friendship should look like through a story-like presentation. Mary P. Nichols, a professor of Greek political theory and literature at Baylor University, argues that Plato's exploration of friendship is grounded in the Socratic notion that the pursuit of knowledge is vital in the effort to achieve true friendship. Nichols states, philosophy must take friendship as its model in order to preserve its pursuit of truth. Nichols presents a unique argument that philosophy and friendship are deeply interrelated. Plato's lysis ends in a perplexing question and leaves the reader confused and without closure. However, the actual point of lysis is in this final perplexing question, and oftentimes, in many of Plato's works, he utilizes this exact structure. Christian Christiansen, a professor at the University of Birmingham with a background specific to Aristotelian philosophy, claims that Plato's use of Socratic dialogue in teaching moral education might seem to bewilder rather than enthrall. This statement reigns true. However, lysis is especially useful for those that understand Plato's message that through the discussion of philosophy, two people can become friends. Plato's use of reported speech allows him to demonstrate that pursuing knowledge leads to honesty, and in turn leads to a sense of friendship. Contrarily, Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics is unable to paint such a picture due to its lack of dialogue. By employing his own definitions and conceptions of friendships and creating an outline, Aristotle fails to show the audience an example of what friendship is supposed to look like. The readers simply get guidelines for them to follow, but Aristotle does not give them any example of what those guidelines are supposed to look like. Thus, despite how difficult it seems for readers to realize what Plato's argument truly is, if they do understand it, they come out with a better understanding of how to be friends. However, readers of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics would never be able to see how friendship is supposed to be played out, despite the fact that Aristotle's guidelines certainly grant the knowledge needed for success. The limits of language created by the Socratic method of inquiry may be counterproductive. However, it does offer a sufficient baseline argument in which Aristotle can elucidate to fill in the gaps. Some authors argue that Aristotle and Plato's teaching styles are incomplete individually, but together they are complementary, and each work provides what the other is lacking. Christiansen argues that Aristotle and Plato's different uses of rhetoric can actually be complementary in the teaching of moral education. Christiansen claims that in teaching moral education, it has been deemed necessary to recruit Socratic dialogue as an add-on to the Aristotelian methodological staples. Plato lacks the detail that Aristotle offers, while Aristotle lacks the rhetoric skill of conversation that is present in Plato's work. Therefore, the two supplement each other. Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics and Plato's Lysis achieve what the other fails to in teaching the audience about friendship. Aristotle utilizes his own essay-style rhetoric to enhance the outline of what friendship is between different kinds of people, and is able to create an argument that is universally inclusive due to its subsections. Contrarily, Plato utilizes the Socratic method to tell a story and teach the audience through visual imagery about what constitutes an ideal friendship. Plato's Lysis illustrates how people can achieve friendship through Socratic dialogue and deep intellectual conversations. Aristotle would in fact agree with this statement. Aristotle too holds philosophy and the pursuit of knowledge to be the highest good, and thus would consider friendship between two people who share this virtue to be complete friendship. Despite their opposite uses of rhetoric, Aristotle and Plato share more in common about the conceptions of friendship than the common reader would assume. Thus, in the discussion of moral education and friendship, it seems that Aristotle and Plato's work can be used together as a means to give the reader a complete and thorough education on friendship that either cannot do individually.